There it is. Did we play the other one?
Yeah. Here, I got it. Yes, and welcome to another 60 minutes of very obviously unscripted .NET entertainment. Our mission is to empower the .NET community to achieve more. And I am your host, Cam Soper, and I am here today with co-hosts Scott Addie and Frank Boucher. And I am super excited to welcome today's guest. I've wanted to meet him for a very long time, and we'll get into that here in a minute. Mark Miller. Mark, tell us all about yourself.
I work at DevExpress in the IDE Tools division, working on CodeRushed, basically managing that product. I've been writing developer tools for about 35 years, I think, something like that. So, as a developer, I've had the luxury of being able to use my own tools, which excites me. It's what I've been doing pretty much my whole professional life.
Awesome. So you mentioned 35 years, and yeah, I was going to point out, I think I've been listening to you specifically on podcasts for like 20 years-ish.
Yeah,
like
that might
like
be.
.NET Rocks started way back. And I have met Carl and I've met Richard a few times, and I think they might actually recognize me. Maybe they might know my name. I've never met you, and I've been looking way forward to it. You were always my favorite commentary on .NET Rocks. You were obviously, I say obviously, you were, in my humble opinion, the most fun on that show. Sorry, Carl and Richard, but Mark really has a great sense of humor.
Gotcha. Burn you guys both.
So anyway, I've been really looking forward to this show. And when we had the planning meeting last week, I said, guys, you got to let me be on this show. And this morning we were planning who was going to do the reading and the hosting. I said, guys, you got to let me do this. I gotta introduce Mark. I got to chat him up. So thank you for the wish fulfillment, and very glad to have you today.
Well, thank you, Cam. I hope that I, earn whatever, all that hype that you've given, right? I hope that I hope I'm kind. I hope I'm a good guy, right? And I hope I come up here with, something cool to show. That's my hope.
I have a feeling you might fulfill your own hopes here, Mark.
We'll do our best.
So what do you have for us today?
All right, let me switch over here, and you can see some code behind me. I have been working on voice to code. The idea is that I have some source code that I want to create, and I don't want to type it in, so I want to be able to use my voice to get there. When I initially was thinking about this problem, I was like, there were a number of, well, I guess first of all, I was like, pretty much concluded that there was no way to solve the problem, and primarily because speech recognition was prone to error. And about a year ago, I tried out, and I tried out the built-in speech recognition that's on the machine. But I also tried out Azure speech recognition, and it blew me away. It was basically coming back with 95% plus accuracy in my own tests very fast. I think even potentially, arguably faster than what it would take on a regular machine to do the same recognition. So that kind of changed things about a year ago when I detected that. The next thing that when I was thinking about it, that I flat out rejected was, there's two things. I don't want it to be tedious, and I don't want cognitive load to be high, right? I don't want the path to be long. I want the path to be short. That's what I mean by I don't want it to be tedious. And cognitive load, I want it to kind of be simple, right? And so as a result, and if you think about source code is generally not simple. Structurally, if you look at an expression tree of the source code, it's actually pretty complex. And that's kind of what we're building. We're building, kind of layers of structure. Like even with this simple piece right here, I've got a console dot write line. So here I've got a qualifier, right? So to some degree, this is a subset of that. I can't have write line all by itself out there. Then I have a string. Then I have like this interpolation bit right here inside there. I've got name of, and then I've got a parameter I'm passing in. So each time I'm kind of getting this nested level deeper, right? And yet if I'm going to describe this to someone using voice, I've got kind of a linear sequence of words. And if I'm going to keep it simple, I don't really want to be saying dot, and I don't want to be saying open paren or $ or quote. I don't want to be saying those things, right? And so that was kind of how I got into this. I was like, okay, those are my constraints. It's got to be non-tedious. It's got to be simple. What can we do?
I'm feeling some of the CodeRushed philosophy here.
Yeah. Well, it's great design philosophy is really the outside piece, which if you've heard my talks on .NET Rocks, I've done those there. I've done those on other places as well. You can search for Signs of Great UI, and you can see some of my talks in the past. But my obsession is on efficiency. The essence of great design is efficiency of thought and efficiency of motion. Right, physical motion. So including like eyes shift in focus, right? Everything we want to reduce all of those things. And even in the area of voice, we want to really, really drop it down. So the challenge is essentially how few words can we say and how simple can we make it is kind of the challenge. I think I'll start right here with this list of points right here. It's a list of points, and we've got a max by call, and we're essentially grabbing the largest Y. What's the topmost point is what we're doing. And the essence of the way it works is you say the important words. And so in this case, the important words are list of points, max by Y. And that's what I'm going to say. So I'm going to delete that. And what the other piece is I didn't want to start with hey Siri or hey Google or hey CodeRushed. I wanted developers to be able to very intentionally, deterministically decide, or very intentionally decide when I'm going to start talking and when I end. And what we've got is we're hooking up to the control key. And so to start speaking, I hold the control key down and start speaking. It's like the push to talk key. And so I'm going to hold the control key down, and I'm going to say list of points max by Y, like that. And that's it. It's that simple and that effortless as well, right? You just kind of have to know what code you want to create, though.
I love the implicit period after list of points was nice by itself, but the implicit lambda is great. I really like that.
Yeah, I do too, because I don't want to say lambda, right, when I'm getting there. For comments, it's great, right? If I just want to create like a new to-do comment right here, I can say, let's add some more test cases to this, and later let's come back and review this method. And again, I'm just holding down the control key while I talk. Notice how fast that was, right? It's sending my voice out to Azure. While it's doing that, we're doing some stuff on our side as well, right? So as you're talking, we're starting to see what's in scope, right? When I said list of points max by, in order for it to get here, it pursues, in some cases, not in this case, probably only maybe a handful of possibilities, but you might have several things called list of points out there. And maybe only one of them has a max by, right? Or maybe one of them has something you're iterating that has a Y, right? Notice also that when we start this, and from a perspective of IntelliSense, max by doesn't exist when we start talking, and neither does Y. Right? So what's happening is as we're evaluating, we're changing the scope dynamically to see what fits. And we're pursuing potentially tens of thousands of possibilities. in terms of what's the meaning?
Right.
What are you trying to create? And we find the best one out of that, and that's what we end up generating.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
I have a question. So why did you decided to not include the to-do when you're speaking and like typing your
Right.
to-do and then like just like
Right. Well, I chose that because I've got a CodeRushed template /T like that, where it just does it for me.
okay.
Does that make sense? And so, and the muscle memory is, I'm used to that. So it's so much faster than even typing in 2 slashes and a space. It's about the same amount of effort. So I get there. Now we could get rid of that, and I could hold down the control key and say, to do, let's do something really important, and then release it. And we get something slightly different because we're just bringing in exactly what you're saying here. Now we could enhance this if this was something that people wanted, right? To look for the words to do at the beginning. And if we find those, change it into this syntax. That's pretty easy to do as well, but we're not doing that now. But it's something we could do. Okay?
Yep.
Inside here, so by the way, it's context aware. So there's essentially 4 major contexts that it's aware of. It knows you're in a comment. It knows if you're in a string. It knows if you're in code. And it also knows if you're doing a rename. By the way, rename is super powerful for voice. I just it's built right in, integrated right with Visual Studio, right? So I hit F2 to rename, hold down the control key, and say, my super list of points, like that. And it's that fast. There's no way to rename faster than this, right? You can't type that quickly and get the response that quickly, right? And if it didn't get exactly what you wanted, or if you think of a different name, you just hold down the control key again and say, this is a better name, whatever that's going to be. Notice it's also keeping the syntax, or sorry, not the syntax, the style, I guess is a better name. It's keeping the style of the original variable name, whatever it is. So if it starts with a lowercase, it'll keep that. If you've got underscores in it, it'll keep the underscores, right? It analyzes what you're renaming and keeps the rename in the same style. So from an effort standpoint, we're driving the effort really low. It's a really low effort rename experience. I contend. I think it's provably low. It's really, really, there's not much faster you can get from this other than, a direct brain implant.
And let's hold off on that until, it's gone through a few rounds of QA.
Yeah, it's like I was talking to Richard Campbell about this, and he's like, dude, it's a hole the size of a quarter in your head, a US quarter. Right? It's about that big. You don't want a hole. That reduces the whole structural integrity of your skull. And I'm like, but I really, really want it. And he's like, no. Yeah. So he's right though. A hit on the side without the full cranium all around is not good if you've got a hole in that space.
Hey, Mark, I've got a question for you here. So you just showed us a variable rename scenario. Let's say you have an editor config set up in your project. Does it honor the stylistic settings in the editor config file?
I'm going to say it probably doesn't work at all in the editor. You're talking about editor.config file. Is that what you're suggesting? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
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 I think it's probably not going to do that is my answer to that question. I have to look that up. I don't touch editor config files really unless I'm following instructions. So I am not an expert at all in that space. But my guess is it would not work unless it was using the exact same interface, in which case it would work. In other words, if it's using if you hit rename in an editor config, if you get this or the other version of this, then it probably would work. Does that make sense? There's another piece though, just you reminded me of, and that is that we're also integrated throughout Visual Studio dialogues. So for example, if I'm in here and I want to do a feature search, I can come in here and say, I don't know, let's see, debug visualization, maybe something like that. And it gives me this right here. Notice up at the top, it's got 2 words there through period at the end, because it sees that I'm in the feature search part of Visual Studio. But if I were to come over to code search and use the control key to say, debug visualization, it gives me this instead with no results found because there's nothing here inside the code. But I bet if I said, this is a better name, it would find it because we just renamed that right there in the background. So it's got integration. Anywhere there's a text box inside Visual Studio, it works. So that includes like XAML property grid, Solution Explorer when you're filtering for files. I think it works in renaming files in Solution Explorer as well. So there's a lot. Any place there's a text box, and you need text, which is, you know, for display text, you often have to type in a sentence or something like that, and voice is really useful there.
And it knows where it is because it doesn't.
Yeah, it has a sense of Visual Studio where it is, and we basically said, look, when we're here, we want you to behave this way, and when we're in the other space, we want you to behave that way. And we've kind of gone through and done that work so that voice is a little more consistent with what your expectations are going to be.
Yeah. It's way better than just like capturing the mic. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Let's show something else in here. If I want to reference something in my comment that's already in the code, I can hold the Alt key down while I say it. So I can say, let's make sure that this is a better name is not null, for example. And I held down the Alt key while I said these words. And what CodeRushed did is it looked to find something that matched this, and it found this, right? It didn't just, you know, make something up. It found this symbol out here. In fact, to prove that, let's just rename this, add like the number 2 or 3 on the end of it like that. And I won't say the number 3, but we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to get something close to it, but I won't say the number 3. So we'll say, let's make sure that this is a better name is not null. And it finds, and that's proof that it's finding what's out there that's matching what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It does. And now I'm imagining this could be really useful for generating XML docs for your APIs.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I love that. So let's create one of those right up here. Distance between 2 points. I don't want to sound too calm here to make it look like I'm already prepped for that question, because I actually am. I have a demo for that. So I'm going to try and sound tense and stressed right now. But we'll come in here. We're going to do triple slashes, just like it knows that it's inside a comment. It also knows it's inside an XML doc comment. And I'm going to hold the Alt key down. I'm going to reference first point and second point here. While I do that, I'll also reference this guy. I'll hold down the Alt key 3 different times, and I'll reference this guy and these 2 in the comment. So we'll say, this super cool method inside my helpful calculator adds or actually calculates the distance between first point and second point. And then let's look at what it gives us. So I'm just going to bring this down on a couple lines here. And there's where I held down the first time. And this is where I held it down the second time. And notice the second time it created param refs, and the first time it created a cross ref. Because it understands, right, what you're referencing and what type it is, and what's the best way to reference it inside an XML doc comment.
So you need to release and press again. So
yes, I hold down Alt while I say these words, and then I release.
Alt, okay.
Yeah.
So you used Alt for first point, and then let off Alt for and then pressed it again for second point.
Yes. Now I will say that, you know, my goal of having lower cognitive load, this dance with the keys, it gets up there a little bit.
Right.
Right. It does increase cognitive load. I think especially the first time you try it. You're like, wait, what? Wait, it's a synchronizing thing that isn't quite what we're used to when we're talking. But you know, it's you can also do this in two passes. So you can say this super cool method calculates the distance between 2 points, and then you can come in here, hold down Control and Alt at the same time, and say distance between 2 points, this time I'm referencing the method name right there, right? Or I could undo that and hold down the Control and Alt and say my helpful calculator, like that, and there it gets it. So you can do it a piece at a time if you want to. Does that make sense? You don't have to unload everything and do the dance with the keys. But I find that it takes, with practice or with regular use, I find that I'm really not spending, my cognitive load's really not that high now to do that dance with the keys.
See, I find that's actually true of CodeRushed, since CodeRushed was a thing, right? Like there's a learning curve, but once you get past the learning curve, you're doing it so fast that anybody who's watching is just like, how is this? What is going on here?
Yeah. I think it's true. There is, I wrote CodeRushed to basically catch up with my brain, because I could think very quickly of the code I wanted, but I just was not a lightning fast typist. I could not get the code out, and I would be like always racing to try to get, sometimes I'd write just like a method name or something and not even fill it in and come back to try to race. And so I built CodeRushed so that I could write code faster, essentially. And all of this kind of led to this exploration and the study of great design and what's the most efficient path from idea to completed, compiled code, that sort of thing. What's the fastest path?
Mark, we have a question here related to the XML docs from our friend David Pine, and I guess this is more of a roadmap question. Is there a plan, or would this even be possible to omit the requirement that you have to press the Alt button?
I think it's really interesting. I've been actually thinking about this. I think the answer is absolutely yes. We can get there, and I think that. And I will say that the engine's actually flexible. You can come in and say time one dot, right? You can come in and group. You can say, I want to group and then complete it, right? And close your group. So the way I would do this, if I want to explicitly say this, is I'd say the word group here, and right here I'd say close, like that. So you can do that. And right now, you have to explicitly hold down the Alt key to get these references. But we could create an engine that was maybe a little bit better, and that could go in and say, well, if I said this is a better name, but maybe I didn't say the 3 anyway, well, what should it do in that case, right? Well, maybe we have some options that say, look, if you get enough of the identifier, and the identifier is at least this big, in terms of word pieces or size or something like that, some threshold constraint, then insert that automatically. And in other words, you won't have to hold the Alt key down. I love this idea. I've been thinking about it, and with everything, there's this balance of performance. We want to make sure it's really, really fast, and we don't want to have any false positives, right? If you said something that happened to match something in scope, and that might also be another optional constraint, is how far away in scope is it before we don't care, right? There's a DB null out there somewhere that I've never seen anybody use. I've never used it, but that could be a match to something that was said inside of a comment or something like that, right? Or even list, for example. That's probably much better. And point. Right? If I don't explicitly say those, do you want those coming in as references automatically? Right? This is that balance, right? So as we start to create breakthroughs in terms of ease of creation of certain and ease of references, right? What's the hit in terms of false positives, and how many people are really benefiting from it, right? So as a product creator, feature creator, this is something that I'm working through, and I have kind of this internal threshold of it's got to benefit everybody a lot, like 95% of the time, and cause a little bit of harm when it 5% of the time or less. That's kind of my threshold for considering it for a feature. So there's some challenges with fulfilling that request. It's possible. I'm just like, it's interesting too, though. It's just, I thought of something else though, too, along this space, this idea, there's actually grammatical clues that may indicate that I'm actually talking about this, right? The closer it is in scope, yes, right? If it's right up in here, yes, more likely, right? If I could substitute that nonsensical grammatical sentence with a single noun, and now all of a sudden I've got a grammatically correct sentence, that's an indicator as well. Right. So there are ways to get here to kind of roll in that direction. But I'm not sure that we're not doing that right now. I'll say that we're not doing that now. We're just thinking about it right now.
So we have another comment from the audience. Tom says, "Wait, are you showcasing that we don't need to type code anymore and can reduce the risk of RSI?" And I'm bringing this question up because I noticed you're wearing wrist braces. I'm not wearing mine right now, but I have them too. So was that part of the impetus behind this?
Not really. It was really more about productivity when I started. However, in the year that I've been working, the quality of my hands has dropped noticeably. And I'm like, oh God, really? Right? That hole in my head, the corticized hole in my head is looking better. But I will say this. The minute we turned on the feature to do comments, it was a huge relief off of my fingers. I felt it off my fingers when I did the first comment. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because often my comments are like, a long sentence. And to type that whole sentence in, whatever that is, right? That's like a minute, for me, 30 seconds, right? That's 30 seconds of constrained, high precision control of my fingers. And if I make a mistake, it slows me down. I have to go fix it. I have to notice the mistake, go back and fix it. Right? Just for comments alone was huge, especially during my live show, because in the live show, my goal is to write code fast. And so sometimes I'll throw a to-do in there. I'll throw to-dos in maybe more frequently in the live coding session than I will in an actual coding session without people watching.
Have you ever done any testing, even if just like on yourself, to see like the performance gained over just, being limited to just the keyboard?
No, but not really. I haven't. A long time ago, I used to do this. I can tell if I can tell it's noticeably faster, right? Well, in general, I can tell because there's a thrill that I get after something's happened. Right. And so I'll do something like, this example here, right? It took me a second to write it. To say it, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever. And then it's all done. And the first time I used the feature, right, I'll be like, whoa, and like, what are we going to do with all the time that would normally have taken to get us here? Let's talk about that. Right. Let's do this one right here. This is a little more complex, right? The important words, remember we got to say the important words. So I'm going to say date time UTC now minus time 1 to universal time. And then I'm going to say total days. Notice total days is not available on either of these two, but it is available on the result of the subtraction. So CodeRushed has got to figure out that this subtraction is going to be a time span, in which case total days will work. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Total days is not here. And it's not there. There's no way we can get it by having a dot there.
Yeah, what's inside the parentheses resolves to a time span.
Right, exactly. So we'll say it here. We're going to say date time UTC now minus time 1 to universal time total days, like that. And so to type this in, right, is going to take forever. If you know the code you're going to write. So this actually goes back to that question before, right? Are we reducing RSI? Yes, I think so. Are we not using our fingers anymore? No. And the reason that's true is because sometimes you don't know that there's a 2 universal time on this guy, right? You have to hit the dot to see IntelliSense to see what's available.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I will be very tired. Well, yeah, I think I will be very tired to say everything like that is in the page. And my mate, if I'm working in a code space, like my neighbor will definitely be pissed off by me never stop speaking. But like by snippet like that, definitely for comments and like for those lines you want to reformulate maybe or like do it differently, I see that as a big plus.
Yeah, it's such a win that it almost doesn't matter if you're being rude to your neighbor, because you save so much. I think there's almost an ethical argument here because you're conserving computer power, you're helping the earth cool down, right? All of these things, right? And you're gonna not have RSI so soon. So yeah, I think that argument is there. Let me show you another one. Let me go. I'm going to switch to another instance of Visual Studio. This guy is a giant solution. This solution's got, I want to say like 10,000 files in it, something like that. It's giant, it's massive. Here, let me grab the Solution Explorer and we'll kind of scroll through just to show you how big this is. It's got like 116 projects in it. It's the source code to CodeRushed is what this is. If you want to open a file and you know the name of that file, you can just, I'm just going to drag this off to the side here. You can just hold down the control key and say, open symbol tracker voice entry. And this time, by the way, I'm holding down the left control key. The left control key is for commands. The right control key is for voice to code. Okay. So left control key, I can bind, just like I can bind any shortcut to a Visual Studio command, I can bind voice to commands as well. And I find these commands, the best commands to put here are the commands that you use a medium amount, but just infrequently enough that you don't remember what the shortcut is, right? Those kind of commands. The ones I use frequently is repeat last test run. I'll hold down that control key and I'll say repeat last test run, and it'll find the last test I ran and it'll run it again. If I was debugging, it'll debug it, that sort of thing.
So that does, I think, kind of relate to another question that David asked a second ago. You mentioned left control and right control. Are these configurable? Because I know like some keyboards only have one control key.
They're not configurable. I'm not aware of one with only one control key, but I'll have to learn about that. I'll have to figure that out.
I mean, usually they're like on laptops or whatever, but I have seen them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I already got that trouble. I think it was a laptop, and like to get out of a VM, you needed to hit the right control and didn't have one, and I needed to remap it. So definitely remember that it exists.
Yeah. So let's let's acknowledge that it doesn't solve every problem. That if you're working close to other people who want it to be quiet, it's maybe not appropriate. But if you've got a giant solution with tens of thousands of files, there is no faster way to open up files than using voice. Open wave format in code, right? It's that fast. If I know the file name, it's up, right? That's all I have to do out of a 10. I don't have to scroll up and down. Don't have to filter. It is the fastest way. There's no faster way to open up files. So if your solution is massive, you might give everybody in the office a pass to be able to say the words open followed by a file name.
So,
right?
So Mark, let me throw you a curveball. Let's say you don't know the file name. Is there a way to quickly do that is facilitated by CodeRushed?
Well, not with voice so much, no. But there is, we have a feature similar to Visual Studio's search everything kind of thing, where you can go in and you can type in whatever that name is, and I'm not sure what happens when it. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure what happens when it can't find what you're asking for. Like you can ask for a part of it. Like let me try this. There's I'm going to try this. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I've got expression voice entry here. I'm just going to ask for open expression voice and see if we can find it. Open expression voice. And it found it right there. So there it is. So you can kind of get it right? If you only have a part of it, let's close it and try to open expression entry. Open expression entry. It's going to get it. Yeah, it found it again. So does that make sense? If you can remember a part of the name, it'll find the best match for that part and bring it open. And the penalty is if it's not the right file, is okay, you close it and try again. Right? It's really not a high penalty, and it usually doesn't fail. And look at how fast it is, right? It is so fast.
Yeah. I mean, certainly beats digging through Solution Explorer or menus or anything like that.
How many people raise your hand who like scroll and pass through the thing you're looking for, and then pass again and pass again instead of just like saying it? No, it's definitely faster.
Yeah.
I was just saying earlier, like, I don't see me saying everything that is like in a huge page of code. I think it will be a mix of typing and coding, but for searching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful.
Right now I use it primarily, probably most for comments. I use it for strings, and I use it for simple expressions is what I do. So I'm still doing a lot of coding, a lot of CodeRushed templates with the keyboard. But when I'm at a point where there's an expression I can put in, I'll throw that in.
Like the English part of coding.
Sorry?
The English part of coding.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so like right here, I can say left text get left text. Like that. And it should get that for me, right? Like that. So it's something simple, right? I said left text, then I said gets, and then I said the rest. And it realized, oh, this is a method. Let's put parens. Let's give you parens there. So, yeah, I can come in here. Now I didn't talk about this. This is the CodeRushed source I'm in right here. But if I want to create something like this particular line of code right here, I can come in and I can say composing message. Then I'm going to say gets. And then when I get here, I'm going to hold down the shift key to create strings. To create a string. So that's what I'm going to do. So it's another dance there that we were talking about before, but you can do it and I find it useful. So composing message gets converting words to code like that. This takes a little longer because the source code is so massive, but that's basically what we get after that. So there you have a sense of what it can do. Is it going to help you? Is it going to reduce typing? It can, right? And does it work on, simple expressions? Yeah, it does, right? Doing things like this, output recognized text, session ID words, right? If you know what you're passing in, that sort of thing, you can do all of those pieces inside of here. This piece right here, right? We're returning a simple expression right here. I can come in here and I can say square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared, right? And it gives me that, right? So there is that inside. Let me show you something else that's kind of cool. I really like this a lot. Let's say we want to basically do a check here to see if the ice cream flavor is our favorite kind. Do you, Cam, do you want to pick one of these as your favorite kind?
I'm going to have to go with the butter pecan.
Okay, butter pecan. And so now we're going to come down here and we're going to say flavor equals butter pecan. And the important words in this case, well, flavor is of this type. So I don't have to say that, right? So it's really, really fast. That's kind of what's going on there. It generates outvars if you need them, right? So just like before when we held the control key down or the alt key down to specify code references, when we're in voice to code in expressions like here, the alt key allows you to reference things that don't exist yet. So here, converted date is just declared here with the var keyword right there, right? So let's comment that out and we'll come in and we'll recreate the same thing. I'm going to hold down the alt key when I say something like this, whatever this is, my variable name, okay? Date time, try parse, date string, my super duper new date conversion variable, like that. And so it knows to declare it and create it right there, right? So you get a lot of savings You get some savings in that space there.
Yeah, with that type of long variable names, indeed.
For sure. Well, look, this may not be obvious. If you're not using CodeRushed, if you're not totally in an optimal mode already, this may not be a big deal to you, right? It's basically what, 8 characters? 6 of them have got to be very precisely hit. The space bar is super easy to hit, so that's not too complex, right? And then the name of your variable, whatever that is, right? But to me, that's a big deal. To type that in by hand, it's like, oh, right? I really, really don't want to do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it goes back to that cognitive load you were talking about.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Inside strings, that alt key can give me these references here, right? So I can say something like, hello, username. I have a very important message for you, and it is message, like that. And I just held down the alt key while I said those things, and I've got my display text. Also really useful for test cases, right? Sometimes in test cases, you have to just come up with display text, right? You're doing a lot of that typing, and maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe you don't want to do that. Okay, makes sense. All I'm doing is just holding the alt key down. I can even put full-on expressions here. I can call methods here. I can do whatever. When I'm in string and I hold the alt key down, I'm really now switching to code. And when I'm in code and I hold the alt key down, I'm switching to new variable names. This is what's happening, new variable declarations. Okay.
Mark, before we move on from this file, we had a question from our friend Mystic Soda that relates to the is my favorite kind code you have there. Yeah. And the question is, what if you had said is instead of equals? Would the result be the same?
I don't know. Flavor is butter pecan. Looks like no. Let's try it again. Flavor is butter pecan. The answer is no. No, it works horribly in that space. However, let's see if we can fix that. So I'm going to go into the options. And I should say that these options aren't built for, they're not really built to be configured, but this is what their state they're currently in. It's not user-friendly. It was built to get up to speed really quickly. Somewhere in here, I've got the word equals. Notice I do have the word is that goes to a logical equality question right there. And here I've got my equals right here. So let's just put a pipe symbol there and also throw in the word is there and see what happens. And we'll see if it gets us any closer. Flavor is butter pecan.
All right, okay. Round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, people. I'm here every Thursday night. No, I'm not. So does that make sense? So we basically said, look, we could do, well, we actually got one. We can do.
Okay, you could hear it. I was not sure if I was hitting the good button. Yay.
I got it. Yeah, so you can, it's configurable. So you can say, I want the word is to do this or this or this or this or this. And that's kind of what I just showed you really briefly. We saw 2 different references to is. There's actually, I think, about 4 or 5 of them in there. And that's what's really cool about the engine is just like it can handle different, I haven't actually shown you this yet. Maybe let's show you right down here. It understands the types and what's appropriate. So notice here, I've got 3 variables named favorite count. Favorite count spelled this way or capitalized this way, another one capitalized this way, and another one capitalized this way, all different types, int, the enum, and the string. And I'm just going to use it in different sentences down here. So I'm going to say favorite count is greater than 0, like that. Down here, I'm going to call that is favorite kind method up above, where it takes an enum. Is my favorite kind, favorite count. And now it should grab the correct one. There it is. See it right there? It's passing the enum in. And then down here, whoops, what's happening now? No, I just got to, looks like my background has disappeared. There we go. It's come back again. I got some sort of notice from, wait, what's going on? What's happening? Let me go switch over here. Are we running test cases? I feel like we might be. Show me test runner. So that's another cool feature. Whoops, not that one. Show me CodeRushed test runner. So you can say the words test. Yeah, it looks like we're running. Let me just stop those. It showed up on another. You can say show me, followed by the name of any Visual Studio window. And there are over 100 of these tool windows that ship with Visual Studio. You're seeing about half of them here. When you go to debug mode, there's another half. And some of them, while debugging, are many menus deep, right? Debug, Windows, watch one, as an example, right? So much easier to say, show me watch one. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Show me exception settings, right? You know, show me the syntax visualizer. Show me, you know, whatever those pieces are. Show me properties. Whatever the thing is you want, you can bring those up very quickly by saying, show me, and the name of the window. Right down here, I was going to do the same thing where I was going to say selected flavor name, which is a string, and assign it to favorite count. So selected favor, sorry, hold on a second. Let's do that again. Selected flavor name gets favorite count. And there it picks the right one. So it understands what makes sense if there's phonetic ambiguity. So what I was saying before about the rules, we had multiple rules for the word is. Just like it can handle multiple rules for the word is, it can handle multiple phonetically ambiguous elements of different types and find the code that fits best to what you've said.
Mark, a big challenge of all those tools where we speak is people like me who have strong accent. Did you try something? Does it?
It doesn't work. I guess there's two things to know. One, it doesn't work as well. You might find out what words you're not pronouncing correctly, and then two is you might become better at pronouncing them. But it doesn't work as well. It works best if your native language is the same as the language of the code you're using. Okay, but yes, we have at least one guy on the team who has a European accent. And he is, as a result of using this, realized that, for example, this word is pronounced bind, not beamed, right? For example, so he's now changed his pronunciation of this word to find like bindings instead of beandings or whatever that is. And so that's realistically what happens. If you are, for example, writing in English and speaking in English, it's generally works really, really well. It's been my experience.
So you're saying Frank needs to learn how to talk American?
No, I'm definitely not saying that.
I'm kidding.
I'm not saying. I'm so far away from that statement.
Mark, we have
invite you at some talk show, Ken. We'll have fun. But no, it's like I was not anyway saying that CodeRushed is not good with like accent. Like I think it's a common issue with all the tools, and that's why
it is. It absolutely is. No, it's absolutely an issue. And it's really an issue when it's not your native language. You will have an experience where it won't recognize it, even though you think you're saying it correctly, and because it's recognizing some other word, right? And that happens, like for an example of bind versus beamed. Right, it's a different pronunciation of the vowel, which for Azure Cognitive Services is a different thing. You know, it's a different word. It prioritizes a different word in the evaluation.
Mark, we have a couple of related questions from the audience. The first one I'm going to pop up on screen here really is asking, hey, what are the limitations of this tool that you're showing off? And then the second one is related in that it's asking, hey, can this thing not only generate code and go to Windows, but can it delete code and position the cursor for me?
Yeah, and also spell the expression as well. So let's talk about the limitations first. Yeah, there are loads of limitations on this. In the current release, not the one I'm working with, but the current release that's out there, there's no ability to create new instances. So you can't say new dictionary of string and int. It's something we're working on, should be out in a near future release. as code gets really, really complex, like, so imagine a single line, right? You're doing things a bit at a time, right? An expression at a time. But let's say you've got an expression that's got multiple ands and ors inside of it, lots of ambiguity, right? As you start getting into that space, it gets harder and harder and harder for CodeRushed. Basically, translation, there's many more possibilities. You might see an hourglass coming up while it's trying to figure out what the best code is, right? So limitations hit you when you have something very complex. However, in my experience, I can't imagine and say a very, very complex piece. I instead do it in pieces, right? I can get like a conjunction of two different, like x is less than 4 and greater than 5. I can, or whatever that is, I can say that, or rather, or that would make sense in my example. But I can't do this and that grouping and then or something else. I can't do that in my own head. But basically, we have discovered that basically we get to a point where the code that you're requesting is maybe so complex that there's so many different possibilities that you may be looking at an hourglass while it's trying to figure it out. We haven't done anything with that yet because we're kind of waiting for feedback from customers to see if anybody's actually hitting that space. But there are ideas we've had to drop that time down. So yeah, we can, that's something that we can do. With regards to deleting the line, positioning the cursor, spelling the expression. Spelling the expression, nothing yet for that. And I'm not sure we're going to go there. Positioning the cursor is possible, I think, with a third-party tool. So let me go back to the code here a second. So one of the features that we have in CodeRushed right now is I can hit caps tab, for example, and it gives me this kind of a screen right here where I basically got all the places I can jump to. Now, we do not have this integrated with voice yet, but there's a plugin that you can add that does do this. And so we do know, for example, people that are primarily only coding in voice that are using CodeRushed plus this feature plus this other product, this other third-party product, which I forget what it is, but I'll look it up and I'll get you guys a link after the show. If that's helpful, is that something that you can, does that help people if I do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
We can do it. And like, if it's later, you can add it also in the comments.
Yeah. So with regards to moving around, and so this, bringing this up by voice is possible, but we don't have voice integration here yet. And I'm just not, I've been thinking about it, but I haven't moved in this direction to fix it yet, to create it. One of the things I'm thinking about is instead of seeing these letter codes, the problem with letters is they're phonetically ambiguous, right? Well, let's see, what F and S are great examples. They both sound a lot alike. So a couple options. One is I could say, well, you just use a phonetic alphabet. So I would say like downtown. You say any two words and it'll figure out the first letter of the two words that are phonetically unambiguous, and it'll do it. Like driving horse, I could say to get here, for example. That's a way to get there. I've also been thinking about just putting up words that are like phonetically unambiguous, like zebra, lion, whatever. And wherever you're looking, you just say that, and then it jumps you there. And then I've also been thinking about like standard approaches where you just use a specific alphabet given to you, such as there's many militaries have like a phonetic alphabet, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, things like that.
I've memorized the NATO phonetic alphabet just because it helps on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. So if you know that, then that's useful. That could be useful if we implement something. I really like the flexible approach where you can just say two words and it'll get you there, right? Fire everyone. Maybe don't say that if you're working with the person next to you. Don't do that. Maybe that's not so good. But I like that approach, and I just haven't done it yet. But I really appreciate the question because it's definitely gonna nudge me in that direction of thinking about it more. Once I come across, once I settle upon what I think is the best way to solve that, once I get it and I say, okay, that's going to be it, that's how I'll do it, then it's a short time to implement it. It's like, a couple days.
one that could be cool that is not really positioning, but at the same time it will. It's a cancel, like before when you start saying something,
Yes.
and like, it was like, oh no, like, and then like cancel, and kind of like dump whatever it's doing and like going back to the where it was when you start recording.
Yeah, I find it's not too hard to just hit Control Z. And it doesn't happen very often. And often, if I make a mistake and I correct it in the same sentence, it still often gets what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So in my use, I don't have a need yet for a cancel on that, a verbal cancel. The only example, the exception is if you've got, like I said, if you've got something that's got many, many possibilities, and you're looking at like, the animation, it says, figuring out what you said or something like whatever the message is. Yeah, that might make sense there.
How does CodeRushed play? Does it play nicely with Copilot?
Yes, it does. Yeah, well, the voice plays really nicely with Copilot. There are a couple like kind of areas where Copilot and CodeRushed kind of jump on top of each other, like where and it's not the voice part; it's just another feature of CodeRushed, but it's a feature that you can turn off. So it's basically CodeRush's IntelliRush feature, which I have turned off right now. So sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. IntelliRush is our version of IntelliSense. It's got advantages like it's got a much bigger window. Filtering's, in my opinion, much easier. Shorter keystrokes, faster to filter, like to see only methods or to see only properties or events, whatever. But CodeRush's IntelliSense and Copilot's assistants can step on top of each other. And so if you see that, you want to maybe turn that off. Just this feature right here, if you have CodeRushed installed. But
Gotcha.
let me show you the integration on this. Let's do this. Hey, Copilot, what do you think about this method? And so what it's doing on another monitor, I'll drag it across. It's bringing up Copilot and asking the question, what do you think about this method? So it started it up. It hadn't existed yet inside of there. This is an answer to a previous question. I haven't hit enter yet. I'm just going to hit enter. And now what it's going to do, notice it's in the background. It's selected the method. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
CodeRushed has figured out that you said this method and said, okay, I'm going to select it for you. And then you get Copilot's reaction to it. Similarly, you can say, hey, can I get a test case for this method? Right? Or can you tell me what I need to do to fix this method? Whatever, something like that. What do you think about this class? Right? So you can ask it questions along those lines just by holding down the left control key because you're in command mode and starting it with Hey Copilot. I find it incredibly powerful. Also in a live coding demo, right? If I'm live coding, and right down there, kids, there's my live coding thing there. If you want to go see this and watch this stuff in use. In live coding, if I say, hey, Copilot, and ask my question, I'm able to ask the question at the same time, and everybody on the stream, live stream, hears it. There's no waiting for me to type it in, right? There's no me telling them and then telling Copilot separately, right? It's all done continuously, and it just makes things move a little faster.
Well, Mark, we're winding down to the end of our time box here. Do you want to tell everybody who might not be aware where they can get their hands on the bits?
Yeah, you can go to the Visual Studio Marketplace and search for CodeRushed. Look for the one that is for Visual Studio 2022 and up, if that's the version you're working with. Otherwise, the older versions will work with the older versions of Visual Studio. I'm pretty sure Voice is only in 2022 and up, though. I'm pretty sure we have not backported it yet to the earlier versions. And that's probably the best place. You can also go to devexpress.com/CodeRushed if you want to. Another great place to get CodeRushed.
Very cool. Very cool. I'll be honest.
At Twitch and watch the live coding because it's an experience. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I go there sometime. Love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, they say never meet your heroes, Mark, and I have found that to not be true today. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on the stream. I certainly hope our guests have enjoyed you and getting to see CodeRushed. I love CodeRushed. I've loved it for literal decades. So this is a bit of a dream come true for me today. Thank you for coming by.
Well, thank you, Cam. It's a dream for me too. I've always been like, I got to meet this guy named Cam.
Well, thank you everyone out there for watching on .NET Live, and I want to again thank Mark for coming by. Check out our other great .NET Live TV streams on .NET Whack Live. And tune in next week when our old friend Viswanatha Swami is coming by to talk about .NET Aspire. See you then.